Ciani Foulkes. I'm the territory manager at Elements.cloud. The reason we've chosen this theme, From Zero to AI Hero, is because we found such a wide range of reactions from people throughout this year, particularly since the Dreamforce announcements last year. We've attended and sponsored a number of community events like the Women in Tech or the Salesforce admins or the architects events, and we've just been on the receiving end, as I was saying, of a wide range of reactions. And lots of people are still shying away from it and putting it down to a lot of hype that's not going to come to anything. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we're working with people like Sam and his team or Salesforce Professional Services that are sort of powering ahead and delivering successful projects. And we were fortunate enough to be there from the beginning of this process and fumble our way a little bit through to a methodology that we found to be incredibly successful, to the point where now is the tool of choice for Salesforce Professional Services, the delivery of agents globally. But I will let Elliot talk more about that in a minute. So in terms of myself, I have been with Elements for almost 4 years, coming back from a long career break, having raised children. And I spent 2 years in finance, as I'm an accountant by trade. Don't fall asleep yet. And then moved into the go-to-market team and now look after our consulting customers in the EMEA region for Elements. And I had zero experience of agents and very little experience of Salesforce 2 years ago. I'm now reasonably confident with a lot of this stuff, but Elliot's story is a lot more impressive.
Thank you. So yes, Elliot Parker. I actually joined Elements around this time last year. I was straight out of uni with a business degree, so no technical experience whatsoever. And my first job was to map out a whole bunch of processes. And then around December last year, we started playing around with agents and realized that to write instructions that would lead to reliable agents, we were going to have to find a much more structured approach than just writing in a text box. So we started using process maps to instruct our agents. And so I then became part of the team that was tasked with building agents for us internally. And now over the last few months, I've been one of the key people teaching Salesforce Professional Services how to use Elements to build better agents, which is both very exciting and slightly terrifying that I'm responsible for that. But yeah, that's me. So
great. In terms of Elements, how many of you have heard of Elements? How many of you know what the Elements platform has to offer? Yep, okay, that's about right. Two people. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction before. So the platform capabilities are huge, and I'm not going to go into every single detail because we could be here all night. But feel free to get in touch with me. I'm very happy to do one-to-one demos, answer your questions, and anything related to the Elements capabilities. But who are we? Elements is a change intelligence platform that was designed and built specifically for Salesforce-centric businesses, bringing business process management and metadata insights together in a process-led change management structure. The founders of Elements came from, as Sam mentioned, a previous business they found that were the inventors of UPN, Universal Process Notation, and they were the ones that drove UPN to become the standard in the Salesforce ecosystem. That's what we use, and that is the side that plays very well into Dovida's presentation on how to scope a project, how to understand a project, the design of it, but we'll go back into that in a minute. The Salesforce metadata, you can sync an org to an element space, and within an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the complexity of the Salesforce org. You would have a full metadata dictionary and understanding how that metadata is structured and also the processes that drive it. But we'll come back to that a little bit later. So the aim of our platform is to help you build the right thing by gathering requirements, scoping projects, then building the thing right faster. It's gone faster ahead. As such, we support over 300 consultancies globally. Our biggest customers we mentioned, not everybody's favorite in this room, as we've heard, is Salesforce Professional Services. And everyone, all 10,000 consultants globally, but everyone with a salesforce.com email address has access to a consulting space in Elements. And we are working gradually to enable all of them and sort of providing training like Elliot mentioned. In terms of the Elements platform and where we sit in the change lifecycle, development lifecycle that I'm sure you're all very familiar with, as you were saying, capturing and validating requirements, as Sam mentioned, bringing stakeholders around a process capability that can be understood both by the strategic side of the business and the technical side of the business, bringing them together, defining work items, so generating user stories, all AI-enabled, and assessing the impact of change, thus reducing risk and giving you the confidence to deliver projects and deliver changes, knowing that they will not break an implementation. That's the basics of what we do. We can delve deeper into it if you want to do on a one-to-one basis. In a consulting context, we are an org health check in a box. That's what we help deliver for a lot of consultants. Insights, account details, dashboards that provide you with an instant view of a Salesforce org implementation and enable you to scope a project, price a project, resource a project in a much more sustainable way. I'll pass over to Elliot, who will talk about the topic of the evening, the agent design capability.
Yes. So Ciani's done a very good job of outlining what we do sort of more generally around Salesforce. We could probably spend about 3 or 4 hours going on about what we do because we are a platform, not a point solution. So if you have any questions after this, please reach out. What I'm going to talk about here is what we do specifically for agents. And really it's around this process of discover and ideate, and then prepare your current state, implement and build the agent, and then what does customer ownership look like? So this is one of the things we've been working really hard on with Salesforce Professional Services. Obviously, don't know if any of you have noticed some of the people on LinkedIn saying that Agentforce doesn't work. In our experience, we found it really does. We've successfully implemented 5 separate employee agents. They're delivering demonstrable ROI, but you have to do it the right way. And what we're seeing is a lot of people are jumping, sort of skipping over this part and jumping in here, not doing the best job in this bit because they haven't prepared properly. And then this doesn't work. You've got a whole bunch of agents still sitting in sandboxes, not being used. So our advantage, as you've heard, was not deeper technical knowledge. In fact, we're relatively inexperienced. What we did have was the right tools to understand our processes, and therefore, instead of trying to fit a use case into a black box of business processes and Salesforce configurations, we're first looking at how we do things today to understand what the best use cases are, then the right tools to prepare our current state and our architecture to implement this agent so that we can then design, and we've got a little secret weapon for that, and build the agent and guardrails then testing and optimizing it in Salesforce. And because we're doing all of this right and not just skipping through to the build part, we're then able to move forward with our fleet of agents and govern them and manage them properly. So I was showing this to a couple of consultants a couple of weeks ago, and they said to me, so really what we need to do is sell the green and then deliver the rest, lead with results. So I'm going to tell the story of one of our use cases, but actually starting at where we are today, and then walk back through how we got there. And through doing that, show you how, using Elements, we've connected all of these pieces together. So the agent we're going to be looking at is around our case to bug process. So when we looked at this particular business process with our product team, they straight away pointed this out as a pain point. Because, so customer raises a bug, the customer support team is then supposed to sift through a whole bunch of documentation to start troubleshooting, then put a whole bunch of documentation against that case, and then hand it over to the product team with all the sufficient data. The reality was none of that was being done properly. Most of the bugs were going straight through to the product team with little to no documentation, and they were going round and round in circles to try and figure out what the real issue was. So in terms of the results, I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of numbers, but our average case resolution time before implementing this agent was 25 days. It's now 5. So this is a real life scenario. It's really working. But on that note, I'm going to jump into our product. So I saw a lot of hands raised for people who know about Elements. What about people who've actually used it? Sam? Okay, so Ciani mentioned a metadata dictionary that we sync. This is what it looks like. I'm looking at our case object here. Under here, we've got all of the metadata that's against that object. And in the right panel, we've got a whole bunch of extra information. So details about, how many buttons and links there are, custom fields, etc. You can also link a whole bunch of documentation. But we also have this Insights tab that shows you all of the dependencies on this case object. So I'm going to fast forward to, imagine in a year's time, we've hired a new admin and they've been asked to make changes to this case object. Now, because we've got all this documentation, before making those changes, they can jump into our dependency explorer. And they know at the click of a button that the case object is used by these 10 flows, which they themselves are used, well, these 4 flows in particular, oh, there we go, are used by agent actions. So we know that if we're making changes here, they could affect this agent that is currently working in production. If I click through here, I've got the exact action that is using this flow. So that's great, right? I know that there's some actions here, but which agent topic are they in, and what does this topic actually do? Well, we can actually attach what we call an agent instruction diagram to that metadata node, and I can open it from here. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this bit because this is the secret weapon that I was talking about. So when we first started building agents, don't know how many of you have tried, but you've got this instructions box, and Salesforce haven't really done a good job of telling us what to put in there. There's some examples on Trailhead, not very helpful. So what we're hearing from a lot of people, what was our experience, was we're looking at this instructions box and banging our head on the table because no matter what we put in there, the agent wasn't doing what it was told. So because we have a process tool, we turned to that and actually mapped out what we were telling it to do. And straight away, we spotted ambiguous logic, repeated instructions, things that weren't immediately visible in this block of text. So we started designing our instructions this way. So what you're looking at is basically a series of if-then statements. So if this happens, do this. If this happens, or this happens, or this happens, do this. And then if this happens, do this using one of your actions. Very simple. I've sped through that a bit, but essentially that's what you're looking at. So you're very precisely defining the preconditions for an agent to go and perform specific activities, either using an action or just using the reasoning engine. And once you've mapped out all this logic, you can actually generate your instructions from this diagram and paste those straight into Agent Builder. Now, a couple benefits from that. One is much clearer instructions. Two, when you're testing and iterating, because even if you get the agent working eventually, things will change, Sam, like you said earlier. That's the only thing we can be sure of. So by using the diagram, when you're making changes to the instructions, we're saving a snapshot. So every time a change is made to these instructions, we're saving the previous version. And when you've generated instructions from that version, we're saving those as well. So when you're working with teams, lots of people making changes, it adds a whole extra layer of governance to this. The other thing you can do, and this applies to all process maps, but including these, is once you've designed your actions and you need to go build them, from the diagram, you can actually generate your user stories. So you can do this for one or multiple boxes. It will then appear against that box in the right panel, and it's actually going to generate not just the user story, but also the acceptance criteria. So it allows for much more standardized user stories, and these can then be pushed into Jira or ADO. So that's our agent instruction diagram. But if you've worked with Agentforce, you'll know that an agent can have multiple topics. So these are the instructions for one topic. If I go to a higher level, this is a representation of the agent as a whole. So at the moment, this agent only has one topic. But if you were to create a new one, it's as simple as adding another line, adding an activity, and then you can define the classification and scope in the box, and then click here to create a drill down and map out those instructions. Now, the other thing is, yes, you might have noticed we've gone all out on this. Our agents have job descriptions and team member records in Salesforce. That's taking it to a whole nother level. But anyway, so from here, I can also click through to the original business requirement that we found to, well, we wrote to actually go and build this agent. We can see who it was assigned to, who was the owner, with the user stories for the actions documented against it. And if I click through to this, we can actually see the original business process where this agent use case was identified. And side note, what you're looking at is a process map that was generated based on our Salesforce metadata. So these are all the ways you can create a case, all of the profiles and permission sets that are allowed to do that if I zoom in, and then how you move through the different statuses of a case. Whole other can of worms. But we've got a whole bunch of different ways to generate business processes. That is one of them. And then you can see who's going to be affected by that agent, which business process activity it's responsible for. So we know where it came from and who's affected by it. And if we move back one more step, where did the idea come from? And this is something that Sam actually helped us work on. We actually have the ability to, if I click off the box, so I'm going to reject these. If I click Find Agent Opportunities, we've built this capability that will look through any process diagram, and based on the inputs and activity and output, we'll spot opportunities for fully conversational agents, but also AI workflows, so a flow that calls a prompt template, for example, as well as good old-fashioned deterministic automation like Flow or Apex. So that is how Elements nicely ties together with a bow every element of that slide that I showed you before. And I realized that was a lot of content to throw at you in a short time, so I hope you've written down any questions mentally. But I'm going to pass back to Ciani at this point to
presentation.
finish off the presentation.
We are trying to stay within the time. So basically, if you're interested in a demo for consultants, we have a consensus demo board that you can view a short pre-recording of the benefits of using Elements in a consultant sort of environment. And if we, just for today and for the people present in the room, if you complete the consultant certification on our academy using that QR code to log in, by Dreamforce, we will give you a consulting license for a year, complete with our referral agreement, which gives you a 10% kickback off the license of any customer you've introduced that has decided to use to sign up with Elements. What a consulting license gives you is the opportunity to create a workspace for every customer you engage with, connect an implementation, so a Salesforce org and all associated sandboxes, have a full view of the metadata for 100 days, and do a whole bunch of analysis. And that would be free for a year to you if you complete our not too onerous consultant certification. And I think that is it from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, Maya?
Hi, I wanted to ask about competitors. What is your main competitor? I know you have different products, so maybe you should focus on specifically the AI agent. And also, what is your unique value proposition in comparison with that?
With our competitors. I think in terms of the generation of instructions from processes, I'm not aware of anyone else doing that at the moment. I'm sure you can, that can be done through ChatGPT, but in terms of the governance side of it, so we've had banks approach us saying, we really want to introduce agents, but we don't have the confidence. And, due to the governance auditing side of things, same in life sciences, and our methodology provided the framework that they could trust, and they were confident that auditors and stakeholders would approve the launch of agents within their business using us. I'm not aware of, with ChatGPT, you wouldn't get that, that's for sure. I'm not aware of any other competitors in that space, unless you know of anyone.
No, I mean, I've seen a lot of is people making, diagramming the logic they want their agent to follow using Lucid or Miro or whatever. But generally, that is then a design document that people will work off that, jump into Agent Builder, and then that gets thrown away. So our proposition is the, governed version instructions, which, again, we haven't seen. But by the way, the agent diagrams with the generated instructions are free. Anyone can use them. Because we want that to become a standard. What really adds the value is when you start tying in that metadata piece and living with those agents and managing them as team members, essentially.
And in terms of the change intelligence platform, bringing together the business processes and metadata connected as a living, breathing documentation that you as consultants would prepare from the phase 0 of an initial engagement all the way to handing over to developers and the delivery teams, and then handing over that final documentation to the customer so they can continue the success of your project. I haven't seen that necessarily, but we do have obviously competition in the process space. Lucid is widely used and accepted. Although it's more two-dimensional, but it's there already, and we're not trying to compete with that. And on the metadata side, there is a whole wide variety of companies that offer solutions that we feel we are probably the most complete in terms of the breadth of metadata that we cover. There are faster solutions like Metazoa or Hubble or whatever. As I was saying, as a change intelligence platform packaged in that way, we don't have a direct competitor. But thank you for the question. Any other questions? everyone's keen to get the last 9:30 train out of Liverpool Street or Waterloo. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.